Like, subscribe, and turn on notification for more amazing video. Respect!
Homeless teen carries blind alien girl to heal her, unaware she's a mob boss's daughter. The rain fell in sheets, turning the neon-lit streets of New Meridian into a kaleidoscope of colors that reflected off the wet pavement. 15-year-old Ryder Hayes hunched his shoulders against the downpour, pulling his worn dark hood lower over his tousled chestnut hair. His piercing gray eyes scanned the alley for anything useful. Discarded food, recyclables, maybe even a better jacket than his threadbare one. Living on the streets of an interspecies border colony wasn't easy for a human kid, especially one with no family, no credits, and no connections. But Ryder had survived 3 years on his own, ever since the transport accident that killed his parents and left him stranded on this alien-dominated world. He was about to move on when he heard it, a soft whimper coming from behind a stack of empty crates. Cautiously he approached, one hand sliding into his pocket where he kept a small utility knife. In these parts, even cries for help could be traps. "Hello?" he called softly. "Someone there?" The whimpering stopped. Then came a voice, feminine and trembling. "Please, don't hurt me." Ryder pushed aside the crates and froze. Huddled against the wall was a girl unlike any he'd seen before. Her skin was a smooth pale blue that seemed to emit a faint luminescence, even in the dim light. Long silver hair hung in tangled strands around her delicate face, but it was her eyes that caught his attention, covered with a milky white haze. She was blind. She wore what had once been an elegant lilac dress, now torn and muddied at the hem. Her bare feet were scraped and dirty. "I'm not going to hurt you," Ryder said, softening his voice. "Are you okay? Do you need help getting home?" The girl flinched at the word home. "No, I can't go back there. Please, don't make me go back." Ryder crouched down, keeping a respectful distance. "Hey, it's okay. I won't make you do anything. I'm Ryder. What's your name?" "Litha," she whispered. "Litha Neros." "You're Cerulean, right?" he asked, recognizing her species by her blue skin. The Ceruleans were one of the dominant alien races in New Meridian, known for their advanced technology and rigid social hierarchy. She nodded, then winced as she shifted position. "I'm hurt. I fell while running away." Ryder hesitated. He barely had enough to feed himself, let alone help someone else. But something about her vulnerability struck a chord. Maybe it was because he knew what it felt like to be alone and afraid. "There's a healer not far from here," Obiquinit, an old Cerulean woman. "She sometimes helps street kids when they're sick. I can take you there." "You would do that? For me?" Litha sounded genuinely surprised. "Sure. Can you walk?" She tried to stand but gasped in pain. "My ankle." Without another thought, Ryder turned and crouched with his back to her. "Climb on." "I'll carry you." After a moment's hesitation, Litha wrapped her arms around his neck. Ryder hoisted her up, surprised at how light she felt. Her skin was cool against his, and she smelled faintly of something sweet and exotic, like flowers he'd never encountered. "Thank you," she whispered, her breath warm against his ear. As they emerged from the alley, Ryder felt Litha tense. "What is it?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "Just please hurry." Ryder nodded, picking up his pace despite the added weight. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched as they made their way through the rain-slicked streets toward the healer's shop in the older part of the colony. What he didn't know was that this simple act of kindness was about to change his life forever. The girl on his back wasn't just any Cerulean, and the people looking for her wouldn't rest until they found her, no matter who stood in their way. As Ryder approached the healer's modest shop in the older district, his heart sank. 4 burly Cerulean males in sleek black uniforms stood at attention outside the entrance, their posture rigid and alert. Each wore an earpiece and had a disruptor holstered at his hip. The kind of high-end weapons only law enforcement or private security could afford. "Damn," Ryder muttered under his breath. "We've got company." Litha's arms tightened around his neck. "What is it? Who's there?" Her voice trembled with fear. 4 guys in fancy uniforms. They looked like security. He ducked into a narrow space between buildings, setting Litha down gently against the wall. "They're my father's men," she whispered, confirming his suspicions. Ryder peered around the corner again. Your father must be pretty important to have goons like that. Litha's face fell. You could say that. My father is Marius Neros. The name hit Ryder like a punch to the gut. Everyone in New Meridian knew that name. Marius Neros controlled the colony's black market, protection rackets, and smuggling operations. His criminal empire stretched across 3 star systems. Holy shit, Ryder breathed. You're a crime boss's daughter? I'm sorry I didn't tell you, Litha said, reaching out until her hand found his arm. Would you have helped me if you'd known? Ryder considered this. Most people with any sense stayed far away from Neros and his operations. Getting involved with his family was suicide. Probably, he admitted. You needed help. That doesn't change just because your dad's a psychopath. A faint smile touched her lips. You're different from most people. Yeah, well, being homeless gives you a different perspective. He glanced back at the guards. We need another way in. There's got to be a back entrance. They circled around through service alleys until they reached the rear of the healer's shop. A small door stood partially open, light spilling out into the dark alley. Ryder helped Litha inside, finding themselves in a cluttered storeroom filled with jars of strange substances and dried plants hanging from the ceiling. An elderly Cerulean woman appeared in the doorway, her dark blue skin wrinkled with age, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her eyes widened at the sight of Litha. By the celestial moons, she gasped, quickly shutting the door behind them. Young Neros, what are you doing here? Please, healer Talia, Litha said. I need your help. I've hurt my ankle, and I can't go home. The old woman's eyes darted nervously to the front of the shop. Your father's men are outside. They've been searching for you since nightfall. I know, but I can't go back. Not this time. Healer Talia sighed heavily, then gestured to a padded table. Sit. Let me look at that ankle. As Litha settled onto the table, the healer turned her penetrating gaze to Ryder. And who might you be, human boy? I'm Ryder. I found her in an alley and brought her here. Do you have any idea what you've done? The healer's voice was low and urgent as she gathered supplies. Marius Neros is not a man who forgives those who interfere with his family. If he discovers you helped his daughter escape… I didn't know who she was, Ryder protested. That won't matter to him. Talia began applying a cool, sweet-smelling salve to Litha's ankle. The moment you touched his daughter, you signed your death warrant. Litha reached out, finding Ryder's hand and squeezing it. I won't let my father hurt him. This is my fault. The healer snorted. And how will you stop Marius? You're blind, child. Powerful in your own way, yes, but your father has never let you develop those gifts. Ryder looked between them, confused. Gifts? What gifts? Talia gave Litha a surprised look. You haven't told him. Well, it's not my place. She wrapped a bandage around Litha's ankle. This should heal by morning. The question is, what do we do with you both now? A commotion from the front of the shop made them all freeze. Male voices, demanding and impatient. They're searching the premises, Talia whispered. You need to hide, now. She led them to a small trapdoor concealed beneath a rug. My cellar? It's not much, but it will keep you hidden until they leave. As they descended the ladder into the darkness below, Talia gripped Ryder's arm. Listen to me, human. You've stumbled into something dangerous. Cerulean politics and crime are not like human affairs, but there's something about you. She studied his face. Perhaps it's no accident you found her. Humans have always been unpredictable. Your kind changes things wherever you go. Before Ryder could respond, she closed the trapdoor, leaving them in darkness with only the sound of heavy footsteps overhead. The cellar was cramped and musty, lit only by a single bioluminescent fungus growing in the corner. Ryder could barely make out Litha's silhouette as they huddled together, listening to the heavy footsteps overhead. They're searching methodically, Ryder whispered, room by room. Litha nodded, her face tense. My father trains his security forces thoroughly. They won't leave until they've checked everything. A loud crash from above made them both jump. The sound of breaking glass and Talia's protests filtered down to them. They're destroying her shop, Litha said, her voice tight with guilt. This is all my fault. Ryder squeezed her hand. No, it's your father's fault. There's a difference between taking responsibility and taking blame. The trapdoor suddenly flew open, flooding the cellar with harsh light. A large cerulean male peered down at them, his blue face splitting into a triumphant grin. "Found them!" he shouted over his shoulder. "The boss's daughter and some human trash!" Ryder didn't hesitate. As the guard began to descend the ladder, he grabbed one of the rungs and yanked hard. The ladder came loose, sending the guard tumbling down with a surprised yelp. Ryder was on him in an instant, delivering a sharp blow to the alien's throat that left him gasping. "Stay behind me," Ryder told Litha as he grabbed the guard's disruptor. The weapon felt strange in his hands, heavier than it looked, with an odd balance. Two more guards appeared at the opening above. Ryder fired, missing wildly as the recoil caught him by surprise. The guards ducked back, shouting for reinforcements. "We need to move," Ryder said, helping Letha to her feet. "Is there another way out of here?" "I don't know," she replied, her unseeing eyes wide with fear. Ryder scanned the cellar walls and spotted a small grate near the floor. "There, ventilation shaft or drainage. Either way, it's our only option." He kicked at the grate until it gave way, revealing a narrow tunnel. "You go first." "I'll be right behind you." As Litha crawled into the opening, the guards began firing down into the cellar. Ryder felt a burning sensation as a disruptor beam grazed his shoulder. Pain flared, but instead of weakening him, it triggered something primal. A surge of adrenaline flooded his system, sharpening his senses. Time seemed to slow. He could see the trajectory of each energy beam, could anticipate where the next shot would come from. With a precision that surprised even himself, Ryder returned fire, hitting one guard in the hand and another in the leg. "What are you waiting for?" a voice shouted from above. "It's just one human boy." "He's fast," came the pained reply. "Too fast." Ryder backed toward the tunnel, firing controlled bursts that kept the guards at bay. Once inside, he pulled the grate back into place behind him and crawled after Litha. The tunnel was tight, forcing them to move on hands and knees through inches of stagnant water. Ryder could hear Litha's breathing ahead of him, steady despite their situation. "You okay?" he called softly. "Yes," she answered, "but you're hurt. I can smell your blood." Ryder touched his shoulder, wincing. "Just a graze. I'll be fine." "You fought well," Litha said, her voice tinged with wonder. "I've never heard of a human standing against Cerulean security forces before." "Yeah, well, street life teaches you to be quick." But even as he said it, Ryder knew this was different. He'd never moved like that before, never felt that strange clarity in combat. It was as if his body knew exactly what to do without his brain having to process it. They emerged from the tunnel into what appeared to be a public sanitation channel. Ryder helped Litha to her feet, then checked his stolen disruptor. The charge indicator showed it was nearly depleted. "Great," he muttered. 3 shots left, maybe 4. "I hear water," Litha said, tilting her head. "A lot of it. We must be near the colony's main drainage system." Ryder nodded, impressed by her spatial awareness, despite her blindness. "Which means we can follow it to the outskirts. Away from your father's territory." A shout echoed through the tunnel behind them. The guards had found their escape route. "They're persistent," Ryder said, taking Litha's hand. "Come on, we need to move faster." As they hurried along the drainage channel, Ryder couldn't help but wonder what he'd gotten himself into. 24 hours ago, he'd been just another homeless kid trying to survive. Now he was on the run with a crime lord's daughter, discovering abilities he never knew he possessed. One thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. They'd made it nearly half a kilometer through the drainage system when Ryder sensed something was wrong. The tunnel ahead was too quiet. The ambient sounds of flowing water suddenly muffled. "Wait," he whispered, pulling Litha to a stop. "I think—" Before he could finish, bright lights flooded the tunnel from both directions. Silhouetted against the glare stood at least a dozen armed Ceruleans, their disruptors trained on the pair. "End of the line," called a deep voice. "Surrender the weapon and come quietly." Ryder assessed their options in an instant. His stolen disruptor had maybe 3 shots left. There were too many guards positioned too strategically. Fighting would be suicide. "Ryder," Litha whispered, her hand finding his arm. "I'm sorry I got you into this." He squeezed her hand. Don't be. I made my choice. Slowly, Ryder placed the disruptor on the ground and kicked it toward the guards. We surrender. The guards moved in swiftly, securing Ryder's hands behind his back with energy cuffs that hummed against his skin. One guard approached Litha more cautiously, as if afraid to touch her. The boss wants them both unharmed, the lead guard barked, especially the human. This surprised Ryder. He'd expected to be treated roughly, maybe even executed on the spot. Instead, they were escorted through the tunnels to a service elevator that carried them upward into what must have been one of the colony's wealthier districts. When the doors opened, Ryder found himself in an opulent foyer with marble floors and high ceilings. The air smelled of exotic spices and expensive cologne. Guards lined the walls, standing at rigid attention. They were led through a series of hallways until they reached a set of ornate double doors. The lead guard pressed his palm to a scanner, and the doors slid open silently. Inside was the most luxurious office Ryder had ever seen. The walls were lined with real books, an extravagance in the digital age, and the furniture appeared to be crafted from actual wood rather than synthetic materials. Behind a massive desk sat a Cerulean male whose presence dominated the room. Marius Neros was older than Ryder had expected, his blue skin deepening to almost navy with age. His silver hair was cut short and precise, and his eyes, unlike his daughter's, were sharp and calculating. He wore a tailored suit of some shimmering material that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. "Father," Litha said, her voice steady despite her obvious fear. "Daughter," Neros replied coolly. "I see you've made a new friend." His gaze shifted to Ryder, assessing him with clinical detachment. A human. How unexpected. One of the guards shoved Ryder forward. "We found them in the drainage tunnels, sir." The human put up quite a fight at the healer's shop, injured 2 of our men. This seemed to pique Neros' interest. "Did he now?" He leaned forward, steepling his fingers. "What's your name, boy?" "Ryder Hayes." "Well, Ryder Hayes, do you know who I am?" "Yes, sir. You're Marius Neros." A thin smile crossed the crime lord's face. "And yet, knowing that, you still helped my daughter escape. Either you're very brave or very stupid. Perhaps both." Ryder remained silent, meeting the alien's gaze without flinching. "Release his restraints," Neros ordered suddenly. The lead guard looked startled. "Sir?" "You heard me. I don't have conversations with prisoners. I have them with guests or corpses. For now, let's treat him as the former." The energy cuffs deactivated with a soft click. Ryder rubbed his wrists, watching Neros warily. "Litha, come here," Neros commanded. His daughter moved forward with practiced obedience, though Ryder noticed her hands trembling slightly. "Why did you run away?" Neros asked, his tone deceptively gentle. "You know why, father. The arrangement with Consul Tarek. I won't be sold off like property." Neros sighed. "It's a political alliance, not a sale. Tarek controls the Eastern District. With his support, our family's influence would extend throughout the entire colony." "He's 3 times my age and has buried 2 wives already," Litha shot back. "I'd rather die than be bound to him." The crime lord's expression hardened. "That can be arranged." "If you hurt her," Ryder interjected, "you'll have to kill me first." The room fell silent. The guards tensed, hands moving to their weapons. But to everyone's surprise, Neros laughed, a genuine amused sound. "By the stars, you humans never cease to amaze me. Such bravado from a species so physically inferior to most galactic races." He studied Ryder with newfound interest. "And yet, here you stand, threatening me in my own office after fighting off my elite guards. Perhaps there's more to your kind than meets the eye." Neros rose from his desk and circled around to stand directly before Ryder. Despite being shorter than the human, his presence was intimidating. "I'm going to make you an offer, Ryder Hayes. One that will either save your life or end it, depending on your answer." "Father," Litha began, but Neros silenced her with a raised hand. "The boy fought for you, daughter. Let's see if he's willing to do more." He turned back to Ryder. "You have 2 choices. Execution for interfering in my family affairs, or service in my organization under my direct supervision." Ryder's mind raced. Neither option was appealing, but one at least kept him alive, and near Litha. "What kind of service?" he asked cautiously. Nero smiled, revealing teeth that seemed just slightly too sharp. "That's the right question. I need someone with your unique abilities. Someone who can move in human circles where my people cannot. Someone who has already demonstrated loyalty and courage. And if I refuse, then you die tonight, and my daughter marries Consul Tarek as planned." Ryder looked at Litha, whose blind eyes were wide with fear. Not for herself, he realized, but for him. "I'll serve," Ryder said finally, "but I have one condition." The guards murmured in disbelief at his audacity. Neros raised an eyebrow. "You're in no position to negotiate, human. My condition is that Litha remains free from any unwanted arrangements. No forced marriages. Ever." For a long moment, Nero stared at him, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded once. "Agreed. Welcome to the family, Ryder Hayes." 5 years later, the Crimson Nebula was the kind of establishment where deals were made, secrets were traded, and lives were occasionally ended. Tonight it hummed with the usual mix of alien species, Ceruleans, Valk, Tarians, and a smattering of humans, all drinking, gambling, and pretending not to notice the armed guards positioned strategically throughout the club. At the bar, a human male in his early 20s nursed a glass of amber liquid. His chestnut hair was now cut short and neat, his once lanky frame filled out with lean muscle. The worn hoodie and dirty jeans had been replaced by a tailored black suit that whispered of wealth and danger. Only his piercing gray eyes remained unchanged, though they now carried the weight of experience. Ryder Hayes was no longer a homeless teen. He was Marius Neros's right hand, his enforcer, his diplomat, his human weapon. "Mr. Hayes," the bartender, a nervous Vo with chitinous arm, slid another drink toward him, a compliments of the gentleman in the corner booth. Ryder glanced at the indicated booth where a corpulent Tarian merchant sat surrounded by bodyguards. The alien raised his glass in salute, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of respect in Tarian culture. With a slight nod of acknowledgement, Ryder took the drink but didn't consume it. 5 years in Nairos' organization had taught him caution above all else. His comm unit vibrated against his wrist. A text message scrolled across the small display. "Meeting concluded. Return to base. -L Lytha." Even seeing her initial sent a warmth through his chest that had nothing to do with the alcohol. Ryder left credits on the bar and made his way out, nodding to Neros's guards as he passed. Outside, his sleek hover car waited, its engine purring to life at his approach. The Neros compound sat on a cliff overlooking the colony, a fortress disguised as a mansion. As Ryder passed through the security checkpoints, guards saluted him with a deference that still felt strange after all these years. He found Litha in the garden, her favorite place in the compound. At 20, she had blossomed into a breathtaking woman. Her pale blue skin had deepened to a rich azure, and her silver hair, now reaching her waist, caught the moonlight like liquid mercury. She wore a simple white dress that contrasted beautifully with her complexion. Though still blind, she turned precisely as he approached, a smile lighting up her face. "I sensed you coming." "Your footsteps are unmistakable." "You're getting better at that," Ryder said, taking her outstretched hand. Over the years, Litha's latent abilities had begun to manifest despite her father's attempts to suppress them. She could sense presences, sometimes emotions, occasionally even glimpses of the future, abilities that made her both valuable and vulnerable in their world. "Father's meeting with the syndicate went well," she said, her fingers intertwining with his. "The Vo have agreed to our terms for the shipping routes." "Good. That should ease tensions in the Eastern District." They walked together through the garden, a practiced routine that allowed them to speak freely away from the compound's surveillance systems. 5 years of careful planning had taught them where the blind spots were. "Any progress with healer Talia?" Ryder asked quietly. "She secured passage on a transport leaving for the Outer Rim next week. 3 seats." Ryder squeezed her hand. Their escape plan was nearly complete. 5 years of building trust, of becoming indispensable to Neros while secretly planning their departure. It had been a dangerous game, made more complicated by the feelings that had developed between them. What had begun as a protective instinct on Ryder's part had evolved into something deeper, more profound. And for Latha, the human who had carried her to safety when she was at her most vulnerable, had become the center of her world. "We should celebrate," Litha suggested, a playful smile touching her lips. "Father is meeting with Consul Tarek tonight. We have the East Wing to ourselves." The implication in her voice sent heat coursing through Ryder's body. Their relationship had evolved in secret, stolen moments of intimacy that had to be carefully hidden from Neros and his surveillance. "Are you sure?" he asked, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "I've never been more certain of anything," she replied, her unseeing eyes somehow finding his with unerring accuracy. Later, in the privacy of Litha's chambers, their bodies found each other with the familiarity of longtime lovers. Human and Sarah-Lynn physiology were remarkably compatible, something they had discovered with equal parts surprise and delight over the years. In the aftermath, as they lay entwined in the dim light, Litha traced the scars on Ryder's chest, souvenirs from 5 years of service to her father. "I hate what he's made you do," she whispered. "I made my choices," Ryder replied, kissing her forehead, "and I'd make them again to be here with you." "One more week," she said, "then we're free." But freedom in their world was never guaranteed. As if summoned by their plans, Ryder's comm unit chimed with an urgent alert. "Hayes, report to the mate office immediately. The boss has a situation." Ryder sighed, reluctantly disentangling himself from Litha's embrace. "Duty calls?" "Be careful," she said, catching his hand. "I sense something's different tonight, a shift in the currents." He kissed her once more, deeply. "One more week," he promised. "Then no more midnight summons, no more dangerous missions." As he dressed and prepared to face whatever crisis Neros had for him, Ryder couldn't shake the feeling that Litha's premonition was right. Something had changed. The air felt charged, like the calm before a storm. Little did he know that the mission awaiting him would alter everything they had planned. Ryder found Marius Neros in his private armory, inspecting an ornate disruptor pistol with meticulous attention. The crime lord had aged noticeably in the past 5 years, his once navy skin now taking on a grayish tinge, the lines around his eyes deeper. Still, he carried himself with the same imperious confidence that had made him the most feared man in the colony. "Hayes," Neros acknowledged without looking up. "Good. We leave in 20 minutes. "Sir," Ryder maintained the respectful tone he always used in Neros's presence, regardless of his true feelings toward the man. "The 5 families are meeting tonight at the Obsidian Palace. All the major syndicates will be there." Neros finally looked up, his eyes narrowing. "I smell my daughter's perfume on you." Ryder's heart skipped a beat, but his face remained impassive. "I spoke with her in the garden before coming here. She mentioned the Vaux negotiations went well." Nero studied him for a long moment, then seemed to accept the explanation. "Yes, which is why tonight's summit is so critical. And with the Vaux aligned with us, we're positioned to dominate the sector's shipping routes. The other families won't be pleased." "You expect trouble," Ryder observed. "I always expect trouble." Neros handed him the disruptor. "This is for you. Sarah-Lynn craftsmanship, modified for human grip. Consider it a gift for 5 years of loyal service." The weapon was exquisite, its balance perfect in Ryder's hand. It was also, he suspected, a test of his loyalty. "Thank you, sir." "I'm honored." Neros nodded, apparently satisfied. "The Taurians, the Krell, the Vaux, and the Saurians will all have representatives there. Each family brings 2 guards. You'll be one of mine." "And the other?" "Dravek." Ryder concealed his distaste. Dravek was Neros's most brutal enforcer, a Sariolan who enjoyed inflicting pain and harbored a particular hatred for humans. He had opposed Ryder's rise within the organization from day one. "We leave in 15 minutes, Neros said, checking his chronometer. "Full security protocols. No comms once we're inside," which meant no way to contact Litha if things went wrong. Ryder nodded his understanding and left to prepare. In his quarters, he changed into formal attire, a midnight blue suit with subtle armor we've integrated into the fabric. As he adjusted his cuffs, he caught sight of the small tattoo on his wrist. A crescent moon, matching one Litha had on her shoulder. Their private symbol, inked during a rare moment of freedom 2 years ago. 1 week until their escape. He just needed to get through tonight. The Obsidian Palace lived up to its name, a structure of polished black stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Located in the neutral zone between territories, it had served as meeting ground for the criminal elite for generations. Ryder followed Neros inside, Dravek flanking the crime lord's other side. The main hall was already filled with representatives from the other families, each accompanied by their guards. The air hummed with tension and the subtle clicks of concealed weapons. Nero greeted a massive Taurian with gold-plated horns. "Bold of you to bring a human to our gathering." "Hayes has earned his place, Gorn," Neros replied coolly. "More than some I could name." The Taurian snorted, but backed down. Ryder had dealt with him before, a bully who respected only strength. As the meeting commenced, Ryder positioned himself behind Neros' chair, scanning the room constantly. Something felt off. The Krell representative kept touching a pendant around his neck. The Saurian guards seemed unusually tense, their scaled hands never far from their weapons. The discussions grew heated when Neros announced the Voss alliance. The Krell representative, a serpentine alien named Sith, hissed his displeasure. "You overstepped, Neros. The eastern shipping lanes have always been neutral territory." "Times change," Neros replied with a dismissive wave. "Adapt or perish." That's when Ryder noticed it, a subtle nod between Sith and one of the Saurian guards. His enhanced human reflexes, always faster than most aliens expected, allowed him to act just as the guard reached for his weapon. "Gun!" Ryder shouted, lunging forward to tackle Neros out of his chair as disruptor fire erupted across the room. Chaos ensued. The summit devolved into a firefight, with alliances shifting by the second. Ryder dragged Neros behind an overturned table, returning fire with precision that dropped two attackers. "It's a setup!" Ryder shouted over the din. "The Krell and Saurians are working together." Neros cursed, drawing his own weapon. "Where's Dravek?" A gurgling cry answered the question. Across the room, Dravek collapsed, a smoking hole in his chest. The Krell representative stood over him, weapon raised, now aiming at their position. Ryder fired 3 rapid shots, forcing Sith to take cover. "We need to move now!" They made it halfway to the exit when a Saurian appeared from a side passage. Disruptor aimed at Neros. Ryder moved without thinking, shoving the crime lord aside and firing simultaneously. His shot caught the Saurian in the throat, but not before the alien's weapon discharged. White-hot pain exploded in Ryder's shoulder as the disruptor beam grazed him. He staggered but remained standing, continuing to provide covering fire as they retreated. They had almost reached the exit when Sith appeared again, this time with 3 guards. Ryder's weapon clicked empty. In the split second it took him to reach for his backup, Sith fired. The shot was meant for Ryder, but Neros shoved him aside, taking the full blast to his chest. The crime lord crumpled, blue blood seeping through his expensive suit. With a roar of rage, Ryder drew his knife and lunged at Sith. The Krell, not expecting such a direct assault, failed to react in time. The blade sank into his throat, ending his threat permanently. The remaining guards fled as security alarms finally blared throughout the palace. Ryder knelt beside Neros, assessing the wound. It was fatal. The disruptor had burned through vital organs. "Hayes," Neros gasped, blue blood bubbling at his lips. "Listen carefully. Save your strength. We'll get you to a medic. No time." Neros gripped Ryder's arm with surprising strength. "You must take over. Protect Litha. The organization needs strength." "Sir, I dash. "Swear it," Neros demanded, his voice suddenly clear and commanding. "I swear," Ryder said, knowing what this meant. The burden, the responsibility, the power. Neros nodded, satisfied. "Always knew you were more than just a human." His eyes fixed on something distant. "Tell Litha, I did love her, me in my way." With those words, Marius Nairos, the most powerful crime lord in the sector, died in the arms of the homeless human boy he had once threatened to execute. The compound was in chaos when Ryder returned. News of Neros' death had spread like wildfire, and already the vultures were circling. 3 hover cars with Krell markings were parked at the main gate, their occupants engaged in a firefight with Neros' security forces. Ryder didn't use the main entrance. He knew every secret passage in and out of the compound. knowledge that had been essential for his and Litha's planned escape. Now it served a different purpose as he slipped through a maintenance tunnel that led directly to the East Wing. His shoulder throbbed where the disruptor had grazed him, but adrenaline kept the pain at bay. All that mattered was reaching Litha before anyone else did. He found her in her chambers, but she wasn't alone. Healer Talia stood beside her, both women tense and alert. "Ryder!" Litha rushed to him, her hands finding his face with unerring accuracy. "You're hurt." "I felt it. And Father." Her voice broke. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "He died saving me." Talia approached with a medical kit. "Let me see that wound." As the healer worked on his shoulder, Ryder quickly explained what had happened at the summit. "The compound is under attack. The Krell are already at the gates, and I bet the Saurians aren't far behind." "What about the Vox?" Litha asked. "If the Alliance holds..." "We can't count on that," Ryder interrupted. "Not until I've established control." Litha's unseeing eyes widened. "Control? You mean... Your father's last words were in order for me to take over. To protect you and the organization." Talia finished bandaging his shoulder, her wrinkled face grave. "A human leading a Cerulean syndicate? Many won't accept it." "They'll have to," Ryder said grimly, "or they'll die." A distant explosion rocked the compound, sending fine dust sifting down from the ceiling. "We need to secure the command center," Ryder said, checking his weapon. "From there, I can coordinate our defenses and address the lieutenants." "I'm coming with you," Litha declared. "It's too dangerous. I can help." Her voice took on a new certainty. "Father suppressed my abilities, but Talia has been helping me develop them. I can sense deception, Ryder. I'll know who remains loyal and who doesn't." Ryder hesitated, then nodded. "Stay close to me." They made their way through the compound, avoiding the main corridors where fighting had broken out. Twice they encountered Krell infiltrators, and twice Ryder dispatched them with cold efficiency. The homeless boy who had once carried a blind girl to safety was gone, replaced by a hardened warrior who moved with lethal grace. The command center was locked down when they arrived, guarded by Naros's most trusted lieutenants. Barak, a hulking Cerulean with battle scars crisscrossing his face, blocked their path. "Hayes," he growled, "is it true? The boss is dead?" "Yes, he died saving my life and named me his successor." Murmurs ran through the gathered guards. Barak's hand drifted toward his weapon. "No human can lead the Nero Syndicate." "He's lying," Litha said suddenly, her voice ringing with authority. "I can sense his thoughts. He's been taking bribes from the Krell for months. He let them into the compound tonight." Barak's eyes widened in shock. "That's impossible. You can't..." "Kill him," ordered a cold voice from behind them. And Varric, Narris's chief of security, stepped forward, his disruptor already aimed at Barak's head. "The young mistress's abilities are well known among the inner circle. If she says you're a traitor, you're dead." The shot was clean and precise. Barak's body crumpled to the floor. Varric turned to Ryder, inclining his head slightly. "The command center is yours, sir." "What are your orders?" For the next hour, Ryder directed the compound's defenses like a seasoned general. With Litha at his side, identifying loyal troops and exposing hidden traitors, they gradually pushed back the attackers. Her psychic abilities, no longer suppressed, grew stronger with each passing minute, allowing her to sense enemies beyond walls and anticipate their movements. When the command center's comm system was finally secured, Ryder addressed the entire organization. "This is Ryder Hayes. Marius Neros is dead, killed by treachery at the Five Families Summit. With his dying breath, he named me his successor. I know many of you question whether a human can lead this organization. Judge me not by my species, but by my actions. Those loyal to Neros will find me a fair leader. Those who stand against us will find me merciless. The choice is yours." Gradually, the fighting subsided. Reports came in from throughout the compound. The Krell were retreating, the security breaches contained. Varric confirmed that the Vos alliance was holding, their forces already moving to secure the perimeter against further attacks. In a quiet moment amidst the chaos, Ryder found himself alone with Litha in Neros's, now his private office. "You were magnificent," she said, reaching for him. "I always knew you were special. from that first day when you carried me through the rain." Ryder took her in his arms, the weight of his new responsibilities momentarily forgotten as their lips met. Their bodies pressed together with an urgency born of survival and shared danger, each touch an affirmation of life in the midst of death. "I never wanted this power," he whispered against her skin. "I only wanted you." "Our escape plan." "We don't need to escape anymore," Litha replied, her fingers tracing the contours of his face. "We can change things from within, make the organization into something better." "Is that even possible?" She smiled, a knowing look in her milky eyes. "I've seen glimpses of the future, Ryder. Multiple paths. The strongest one, the one that burns brightest, shows us building something new together. Something neither human nor Cerulean, but stronger than both." As they held each other in the eye of the storm, Ryder knew their greatest challenges still lay ahead. The other crime families would test him. Traitors would emerge from within. But with Litha's abilities and his own determination, perhaps they could forge a new path. One that led not to escape, but to transformation. 6 months later, the Grand Plaza of New Meridian sparkled under the twin moons, its fountains casting prismatic reflections across the gathered crowd. What had once been a neutral meeting ground for criminal negotiations was now the site of legitimate business discussions and cultural exchanges. In just 6 months, Ryder Hayes had transformed the Narrow Syndicate into the Narrows Hayes Corporation, converting illegal operations into legitimate enterprises one by one. Smuggling routes became certified trade lanes. Protection rackets evolved into security contracts. The transition wasn't seamless. Old habits died hard, and not everyone embraced the change. But the organization was evolving. From his vantage point on the plaza's upper terrace, Ryder watched the mingling crowd of humans and aliens below. He cut an impressive figure in his tailored black suit, the silver cufflinks bearing the new corporate insignia catching the moonlight. At 21, he carried himself with the confidence of a man twice his age, the weight of leadership having forged rather than broken him. "Admiring your handiwork," a melodious voice asked from behind him. Ryder turned to find Litha approaching, her movements graceful and assured despite her blindness. She wore a gown of flowing silver that complemented her azure skin, her long hair adorned with luminescent crystals that matched the natural glow of her complexion. Around her neck hung a pendant containing a fragment of the disruptor that had killed her father, a Cerulean tradition of remembrance. "Just thinking about how far we've come," he replied, taking her hand and bringing it to his lips. "The old man would hardly recognize the place." Litha smiled, a hint of mischief in her unseeing eyes. "Oh, I think he'd be secretly pleased. My father always respected strength and adaptation. You've shown both." Her abilities had flourished over the past months. What had begun as simple empathic sensing had developed into something more profound, a true psychic gift that allowed her to perceive emotions, intentions, and even glimpses of possible futures. She had become an invaluable mediator, her reputation for fairness and insight spreading throughout the sector. "The Vo delegation is impressed with the new shipping terminal," she said, leaning into him, "and the human merchants are finally feeling secure enough to expand their operations here." Ryder nodded, his arm sliding around her waist. Their relationship had deepened alongside their professional success, nights of passion interwoven with days of shared purpose. What had begun in an alley with a simple act of kindness had blossomed into something neither could have imagined. "Sir," Varric approached, bowing slightly. The chief of security had become one of Ryder's most loyal supporters. "Consul Tarek has arrived, with an entourage." Ryder felt Litha tense beside him. "How many?" "6 guards, all armed with ceremonial blades." "Ceremonial?" Ryder raised an eyebrow. "That's specific." "He's invoking the right of ancestral claim," Litha said quietly, her face suddenly pale. "It's an ancient Cerulean tradition. When a high-ranking male dies without a male heir, his promised alliances can be claimed by force." "Your father promised you to him," Ryder recalled. "That's why you ran away that night." She nodded. "The right must be exercised within one planetary cycle of the Patriarch's death. Today is the final day." Varric cleared his throat uncomfortably. "There's more, sir. He's brought a judicial witness. Makes it official." Ryder's jaw tightened. After everything they'd accomplished, After all the progress they'd made, this remnant of the old world had emerged to threaten their future. "What are our options?" he asked Litha. "Limited. The tradition is recognized in colonial law. If he makes the claim publicly, with witnesses." She hesitated. "You can refuse, but it would mean war. The traditionalists would side with him. Or you can accept his challenge, a duel, fought with traditional weapons. Winner claims leadership of the Nero's holdings and me." Ryder's gray eyes hardened. "Then I accept the challenge." The plaza fell silent as Consul Tarek made his formal declaration. The Cerulean official was tall and imposing, his dark blue skin marked with the elaborate tattoos of his high status. Though well into his 6th decade, he moved with the fluid grace of a practiced warrior. "I invoke the right of ancestral claim," his voice boomed across the gathering. "Marius Neros promised his daughter an alliance. I come to claim what is mine by right and tradition." Ryder stepped forward, his human frame seeming almost fragile next to the Cerulean's bulk. Yet something in his stance, a coiled readiness, a fearless determination, gave even Tarek pause. "I am Ryder Hayes, chosen successor of Marius Neros and leader of his holdings. I reject your claim and accept your challenge." A murmur ran through the crowd. Humans watched with concern, many Ceruleans with anticipation. The judicial witness, an elderly Cerulean female in formal robes, stepped forward. "The challenge is accepted. As tradition dictates, combat will be with blade alone, until submission or death. The circle will be drawn." Attendants quickly marked out a large circle in the center of the plaza. Tarek removed his formal outer robe, revealing a muscled torso covered in battle scars. He drew a curved blade from his belt, its edge gleaming wickedly in the moonlight. Ryder shed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, accepting a straight blade from Varric. The human weapon was simpler, but no less deadly. "Be careful," Litha whispered as he prepared to enter the circle. "He's fought dozens of these duels." "So have I in my way," Ryder replied. "Street fights, syndicate battles, different contexts, same stakes." He kissed her softly. "I carried you once when you couldn't walk. I'm not about to let you go now." The duel began with ceremonial formality that quickly gave way to lethal intent. Tarek attacked with the confidence of experience, his blade whistling through the air in practice patterns. Ryder defended cautiously at first, studying his opponent's style, adapting as he had always done. The Cerulean was stronger, with a longer reach and decades more experience. But Ryder was faster, more unpredictable, his human reflexes allowing him to react in ways Tarek couldn't anticipate. Where the Consul fought with textbook precision, Ryder incorporated techniques from a dozen worlds, fighting styles he'd picked up during years on the street and in Neros' service. Blood was drawn on both sides, a slice across Ryder's forearm, a gash on Tarek's shoulder. The crowd watched in tense silence, the only sounds the clash of blades and the combatants' controlled breathing. "Yield," Tarek growled after a particularly fierce exchange. "You fight well for a human, but you cannot win." "Funny," Ryder replied, ducking under a swing and scoring a hit on Tarek's thigh. "I was about to suggest the same to you." The Consul's face darkened with rage. He launched a blistering series of attacks, driving Ryder back toward the edge of the circle. One step outside would mean forfeit. Just as it seemed Ryder would be forced out, he dropped to the ground, rolling beneath Tarek's guard and coming up behind him. Before the Cerulean could turn, Ryder's blade was at his throat. "It's over," Ryder said quietly. "Yield." For a moment it seemed Tarek might refuse. Then with a bitter curse, he dropped his weapon. "I yield." The judicial witness stepped forward. "The challenge is concluded. Ryder Hayes retains leadership and all claims are nullified." The plaza erupted in cheers, humans celebrating openly, Ceruleans more restrained but no less approving. As Ryder stepped out of the circle, Litha was there, her hands finding his face, her lips meeting his in a kiss that spoke volumes. Later that night, in the privacy of their chambers, they celebrated their victory in more intimate ways, their bodies joining in a union that transcended species. Human and Cerulean, once so different, now perfectly attuned to each other's needs and desires. "I saw something today," Litha murmured afterward, her head resting on his chest. During the duel, a glimpse of our future. Good news, I hope, Ryder asked, stroking her silver hair. The best. I saw a child, Ryder. Our child. A son with your eyes in my skin. The healers said it was impossible, but my vision was clear. Ryder's heart swelled with emotion. A family of our own. More than that, Letha continued. I saw New Meridian transformed, humans and Cerealans working together, learning from each other. What we started here, it's just the beginning. As they drifted to sleep in each other's arms, Ryder reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From a homeless boy carrying a blind alien girl through rainy streets, to the leader of a corporate empire with a woman he loved by his side. It wasn't the escape they'd once planned, but something far better, a new world they were building together. And it had all begun with a simple act of kindness in an alley, proof that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, humanity's light could shine through.